This interview is part of our Rote to If series. You can find the rest by clicking here. Noita simulates every pixel of its expansive world, allowing players to break walls, set fire to oil, melt ice, and generally change the environments around them as they explore procedural places. Gamasutra had a chat with Petri Purho, one of the developers behind the Seumas McNally Grand Prize, Excellence in Design, and Nuovo Award-nominated Noita, to talk about the appeal of simulating every aspect of the game, how this kind of play allows for a constant feeling of rediscovery and creativity in how the player handles problems, and how the whole thing has come from a game jam that has gotten far out of hand. Hi, I am Petri Purho. I am one of the 3 persons working on Noita. The other 2 are Olli Harjola, of the Swapper fame, and Arvi Teikari, of Is fame. I am mostly known for my long and luxurious hair, but I did also make Crayon Physics Deluxe a long time ago. I dipped my toes into the game development industry back in 2005 when it interned and then worked part-time at Frozenbyte on Shadowgrounds and then on Shadowgrounds Survivors. In 2006, inspired by experimental gameplay project, I started doing a game a month that might look Kloonigames. One of the games I made for it was called Crayon Physics. It was a 5-day prototype that got a really good reception, so I decided to make a bigger version of it. While that game, named Crayon Physics Deluxe, was in development, I submitted it to IGF, and it got nominated and eventually won the Seumas McNally Grand Prize in 2008. Anyway, from that point on, I have been a full-time indie, mainly cause I figured I did work on my own games until I ran out of money and then I did my hair and get a proper job. Luckily I have not run out of money yet. Noita has had a really long and complicated process of getting to where it is now. It can be traced back to one of the monthly games I did for my blog, called Bloody Zombies. That game was made for Gamasutra 5.6, which had the restriction that you had to make a game that had a resolution of 256x256 or less. I figured that doing such a low resolution would allow you to use a lot of CPU power per pixel. So, if you could die, do you make a game in which all the blood was simulated? In that game, you used a lawnmower to mow down zombies, and they would look huge amounts of blood. Then you used the blood to platform into places. You could also use the lawnmower in the blood to blood surf. Anyway, making that game in 7 days left me always wondering if there be more things that could be simulated in a similar fashion. Namely, I was really curious if rigid bodies could be simulated at the resolution. The idea of having ragdoll zombies that you could shoot legs off of and see them drag their way towards the player seemed like a lot of fun. In 2011, I started playing around with that stuff. It was 2012 when I asked Arvi Teikari if he would do some pixel art for a game that turned out to be a deadline, which a wizard would cast spells to manipulate the world. The gameplay never quite worked, but it was a really fun to mess around in it. In 2013, Olli Harjola joined our team. We tested a few different game ideas during that time, including a 2D card game, a Terraria Minecraft type of game, an RTS. It was Olli's prototype, in which you controlled a character directly, with vast mouse, that had the most immediate fun. We have a custom engine, called Following Everything. It's written in C, and it uses a few third-party libraries. For writing code, I use Sublime Text 3, and to compile and debug, we use Visual Studio 2013. For graphics, We use all kinds of things like Photoshop, Multimedia Fusion Aseprite, and Krita. On the most superficial level, it creates a unique look for the game. On a deeper level, having a highly simulated world feels much richer and much more interesting to explore. Not just explore in the spatial way, but to explore as a set of systems. It functions as this emergence-generating machinery that keeps on generating these interesting situations of play. There's always something new to be discovered, even for us. Like, yesterday I was playing the game and I killed that enemy that was above me. His body fell down and broke an oil lantern. The oil spilled on me, and I was ablaze. That had never happened to me before. There were a bunch of technical problems that we had to solve, but their difficulties have been in the game design. Technical questions are much easier to answer. Is this running 60 FPS? Yes. Then it's working. The game design is much more difficult. Is this fun to play? Well, it depends who is playing. Maybe I find it really interesting, fun, and engaging. But will our players, will they understand what's going on? Is it too difficult or frustrating? It's easy to think that having a complex, a highly realistic simulation will automatically result in interesting gameplay. Often, that's not the case. The simulation can, in fact, be in the way of more interesting gameplay, like, if in Bloody Zombies, I would have added IK-based enemies, simulating their limbs physically to make them work. You could chop off their legs and arms and they do still come at you. In theory, that sounds like really cool and interesting gameplay. But what if, in practice, the enemies are just really cumbersome and they just keep falling over each other? It would be fun to watch for a while. But do they really provide a formidable and interesting enemy for a game? There are tons of examples like that from the development of Noita. One of the ideas we tested was having buildings where you do fight enemies, and the buildings were all simulated and could collapse. That sounded really cool in theory. In practice, you very often ended up with just a bunch of rubble at the bottom of the screen. So, the process of working Noita has been one of implementing things and then testing them to see what worked and what did not. Not just in terms of simulation, but more often in terms of how it affects the gameplay. Terraria's Spelunky is one of the games that's influenced me and Noita a lot. One of the beautiful things that Spelunky did was it forced you, as a player, to learn how the world worked in a more systemic and deeper level than traditional linear games. So, in order to achieve that, we decided to do a permadeath game with procedural generation. That way, when the player learns things, they will learn them not just through rote memorization, but in a way that allows them to apply that knowledge to a variety of situations. That's a theory. At least, everything in our game is already very dynamic, so adding procedurally generated environments has not been all that big of a problem. Using Barrett's Herringbone Wang Tiles has also allowed us to control generation in a pretty nice way. One of the benefits of procedural level generation is that it has kept the game fun to play for us. Throughout the development process, I still really enjoy playing the game, which is a rare pleasure when you consider that I have worked on this game for like 6 years now. The player needs to have a high degree of environmental awareness, so they can use the environment to their advantage, and also to avoid hazardous bits, g. shooting eyes to make it break to drop on top of enemies and kill them. Or, if there's an enemy that's drenched in oil, you can set that oil on fire to kill the enemy. Or, if there's treasure in an inaccessible location, you can use the enemies that shoot acid balls to dissolve the barrier. and help you get access to it. A few years ago, we began developing the Edge of Eternity. The game has recently reached its early access stage, and though are still far from finished, we already have learned many valuable lessons about how to approach early access. With a better handful of developers, 9 to be precise, even though Edge of Eternity has many qualities going for it, we could not allow ourselves to be deceitful of what would be the final product. It is and will remain a game made by a small indie studio. Being transparent was the best way for us to ensure the players will be well disposed toward your game throughout the whole development. Before the beginning of the early access, we were getting increasingly worried that the players would chalk Edge of Eternity as being on the same level as the heavyweights of the genre, like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, and that they would felt betrayed, realizing that not all of the production values we could offer could be on the same level as those games. So even if we worked our heads off to provide the best vistas and environment we could, we had to make sure the players would not confuse us with a big production game. So we had to do some evangelizing to make sure everyone knew that Edge of Eternity was an indie game. It came with publishing a full calendar of upcoming content and features for the next months. Nothing is worse for players to invest themselves and their money in a game where they are unsure of the payoffs.